Jealousy, the green-eyed monster. Who has the jealous bug? Heterosexual and homosexual men and women are capable of becoming jealous. Previous research shows that men become jealous over sexual infidelity, whereas women become jealous over emotional infidelity. But what's the difference? Attitudes towards behaviors that are acceptable and unacceptable within each relationship, not necessarily formed from psychobiology. Jealousy versus infidelity. Jealousy is a complex emotion that encompasses feelings ranging from fear to abandonment to rage and humiliation. Jealousy strikes both men and women and is most typically aroused when a person perceives a threat to a valued relationship from a third party. An emotion that comes from both men and women for fear of infidelity. Infidelity is breaking a promise to remain faithful to a sexual partner. The J-Sim hypothesis. Jealousy is a specific innate module. That is what J-Sim means. Harris was trying to figure out if natural selection was to blame for types of jealousy. Heterosexual men are more likely than heterosexual women to be affected by infidelity. Heterosexual participants have a greater problem with sexual infidelity than homosexual participants. What did they do? Homosexual and heterosexual men and women from Southern California were chosen for this study. There was 196 people. The original total was 210, but 14 people were bisexual individuals and they were excluded from all the analysis. The measures used in Harris's study included both hypothetical reactions to infidelity and experience with actual infidelity. In the hypothetical reactions to infidelity, participants were asked to think of a relationship that they had been in and imagine the person they were in the relationship with interested in someone else, and then they were asked what affects them the most, sexual infidelity or emotional infidelity. Experience with actual infidelity is when the participants had to think of a time that they were actually cheated on. Then they were asked to what degree were they affected emotionally and sexually by infidelity. Heterosexual participants were also asked if the relationship ended over this and who ended it. A 5-point scale was used to determine how they were affected, 1 being not affected at all by infidelity and 5 completely affected by infidelity. Harris, what did they find? In the hypothetical portion, they found that the model was different than the J-Sim hypothesis. 74% of heterosexual males say they would be more hurt by emotional infidelity than sexual infidelity. Gay men had also found emotional infidelity harder to cope with. In the actual portion of the study, 70% of participants had experienced some sort of cheating throughout their life. All participant groups showed a larger effect from emotional infidelity over sexual infidelity. They were not affected by gender or sexual orientation. What does all this mean? Heterosexual and homosexual men and women are all similar when it comes to how they feel about infidelity. But when it comes to ending a relationship due to infidelity, women are more likely to terminate the relationship than men are. The second study we're going to talk about today is Frederick and Falls and what they did. They took a sample of 63,894 participants. They did 3 different studies. With the materials and procedures, they did scenarios. Participants were asked to think of the most upsetting situation that they could. Then they were asked to choose between 2 situations, one involving sexual infidelity and one involving emotional infidelity. Sexual infidelity was marked with a 1 and emotional infidelity was marked with a 0. What did they find? They found that heterosexual men were more affected by sexual infidelity. Overall, people who date women were not more likely to be more affected by sexual infidelity than those who date men. What does it mean? When you take gender out of the equation, emotional infidelity is more likely to affect people than sexual infidelity. But when you add gender, heterosexual men differ from all other groups. In conclusion, we find that all people experience some sort of jealousy. Heterosexual men are more likely to experience issues with sexual jealousy than those of all other groups. Heterosexual women and homosexual men and women are more likely to experience emotional jealousy. And that's it.